Imagine you are standing in a room full of mirrors, not glass mirrors, but living ones. Each reflection is a version of you, but it's the you that someone else needs you to be. In one mirror, you are the endlessly patient friend, your ear perpetually available for another's crisis. In another, you are the hyper-competent professional, your inbox a testament to your immediate responsiveness, your digital light always green. In a third, you are the dutiful child, the supportive partner, the engaged citizen. Each reflection, a perfect, polished performance of availability. The room hums with the soft applause of expectation, the quiet validation that comes from being needed, from being there. You are connected, you are essential, you are, by all modern metrics, a success. And yet, a strange and unsettling silence has begun to grow within you, a silence that is not peace, but a vacuum. You feel it late at night, after the last notification has been answered and the final request has been met. It's a phantom limb sensation, the ghostly ache of a part of yourself you can no longer feel. You have given so much of your psychic real estate to others that you are no longer sure who owns the deed to your own soul. The constant state of being on has become your identity. But what is a light that is never allowed to switch off? It ceases to be a beacon and becomes just part of a relentless, meaningless glare. This is the great and terrible paradox of our age. We have been sold the belief that our value is measured by our accessibility, that to be loved is to be available, and to be successful is to be instantly reachable. We have built our lives around this creed, turning ourselves into open invitations, into public spaces where anyone can wander in at any time. But what happens when the doors to the self are never closed? What if the constant performance of connection is, in fact, the most profound form of disconnection from the one person you have been trained to ignore, yourself? When was the last time you experienced a thought that wasn't a reply? A feeling that wasn't a reaction? When did you last hear the sound of your own inner voice, uninflected by the static of 1,000 external demands? Who are you, truly, when the audience leaves the theater, when the mirrors go dark, and you are left alone in the quiet hum of your own existence? Does that person even exist anymore, or has the echo become the source? This is not a question of time management or digital detox. This is a question of existential architecture. We fear that if we become unavailable, we will become invisible. We fear that in the silence, we will discover a terrifying emptiness. And so we keep answering, keep showing up, keep performing the role of the eternally present one, all the while feeling like a ghost at our own feast. We are haunted by a self we have never met, but whose absence we feel in our bones. This is the deep, gnawing anxiety of the perpetually available soul, the realization that you have become a reflection for everyone else, and in the process have lost sight of your own face. The constant, immediate access you grant to the world has come at a terrible price. The loss of access to yourself, this slow, silent erosion of the self, is not a personal failure, nor is it a coincidence. It is the symptom of a profound and hidden sickness in our culture, a psychological theft on a grand scale. We have been conditioned to abandon our own inner sanctuary, to mistake the performance of a self for the presence of a soul. And this conditioning runs so deep, its roots drawing from forgotten philosophies and powerful, unseen psychological forces, that we mistake its prison walls for the supportive frame of a meaningful life. We have been taught to fear the very thing that holds the key to our power, our depth, and our freedom. The sacred act of being unavailable. This fear of unavailability, this compulsion to present a constantly accessible self, was not born in a vacuum. It was taught, but there was no single teacher, no shadowy cabal that dictated this new creed. Rather, we have been shaped by a perfect storm of psychological pressures and philosophical shifts, a new architecture of the soul designed for a new kind of world. To understand this hidden problem, we must first turn to the great cartographer of the inner world, Carl Jung. Jung gave us the concept of the persona, the social mask we all wear. It is the polished, curated version of ourselves that we present to the world for the sake of harmony and acceptance. The persona is not inherently evil. It is a necessary tool for navigating a complex social reality. It is the diplomat that represents the vast, chaotic, and often contradictory nation of our inner self. The problem, Jung warned, arises when we forget that we are wearing a mask, when the diplomat begins to believe it is the entire nation. And modern society has become the ultimate masquerade ball. We are not merely encouraged to wear our persona, we are incentivized to perfect it, to expand it, to make it our entire being. Our digital lives are, in essence, persona-building workshops. Every profile, every post, every immediate reply is an act of reinforcing the mask of the happy, successful, and, above all, available individual. We receive our validation not for who we truly are in our unvarnished complexity, but for the flawlessness of our performance. The danger is hypnotic. The mask works. It gets us the job, the likes, the social capital. And so we pour more and more of our energy into its upkeep, starving the true self that lives behind it. We become masters of public relations for an entity, me, that is growing increasingly hollow. We are the curators of an empty museum. This internal pressure is what the philosopher Byung-Chul identifies as the core of our burnout society. We no longer live in a disciplinary world of thou shalt not, enforced by external authorities. We live in an achievement society driven by the seductive and far more tyrannical mantra of thou canst. The new authority is not a king or a state. It is the idealized, ever-productive, ever-available version of ourselves. We have become our own slave drivers. We are not chained in a factory. We are tethered to our own potential, and the primary tool of this self-exploitation is constant connectivity. Being unavailable is seen as a moral failing, an act of anti-productivity, a refusal to achieve. It is a rebellion against the only God this new society truly worships. The optimized self. We are not oppressed by others. We are oppressed by the freedom to exhaust ourselves. This relentless performance serves another, deeper purpose, one that the philosopher Søren Kierkegaard would have recognized with dread. It is an escape from the terror of being a singular individual. To be truly an individual is to stand alone before the abyss of infinite choice, to bear the weight of creating your own meaning. It is far easier, far more comforting, to dissolve into what Kierkegaard called the crowd. The crowd has its own identity, its own rules, its own narcotic hum of shared opinion. Today, that crowd is global, digital, and perpetually demanding. By being constantly available to it, we are reassured that we belong, that we are not alone. We trade the terrifying burden of authentic selfhood for the comfortable anonymity of being a function, a responsive node in a vast network. To choose unavailability is to choose individuality. It is to step out of the crowd's deafening noise and face the profound, unnerving silence of the self, a silence we have been masterfully conditioned to fear more than anything else. This, then, is the hidden architecture of our unease, a Jungian persona inflated into an identity, powered by a culture of self-exploitative achievement, and used as a shield against the Kierkegaardian terror of being a true individual. We have been sold a beautifully decorated cage and have mistaken our frantic pacing within it for a meaningful journey. But what is the true cost of this self-imposed exile from our own interior? What happens to a mind that is never allowed to be alone with itself? To a soul that is fed only the thin gruel of public approval? The consequences are far more insidious and damaging than simple exhaustion, for they quietly warp the very way we perceive reality itself. This warping of reality begins subtly, not with a bang, but with a quiet, creeping fragmentation of your mind. Neurologically, your brain is being rewired. The constant stream of notifications, messages, and demands creates a state of perpetual, low-grade emergency. Each ping delivers a tiny, addictive hit of dopamine, the neurochemical of reward and motivation. You are not just being conditioned. You are being trained, like a laboratory animal, to seek the stimulus, to crave the interruption. Your capacity for deep, sustained focus, the very foundation of meaningful work, creativity, and self-reflection, begins to shatter. Your thoughts, once capable of flowing like a deep river, now skitter across the surface like scattered raindrops on hot pavement. You find yourself reading the same paragraph 4 times, opening a new tab for every fleeting thought, and feeling a phantom buzz in your pocket even when your phone isn't there. This is not a personal failing of discipline. It is the predictable neurological outcome of a mind that is never allowed to rest. But the most devastating consequence is happening in the silence you no longer experience. There is a crucial network in your brain, a default mode that activates only when you are not focused on an external task. It is in these moments of quiet reflection, of daydreaming, of simply being, that your brain does its most profound work. It's where it consolidates memories, makes sense of your experiences, and, most importantly, constructs and maintains a coherent sense of self. This is the neurological space where your identity is woven together. By remaining constantly on and available, you are systematically starving this network. You are denying your brain the quiet, fallow time it needs to build you. The result is a silent atrophy of the soul's muscle. Your sense of self becomes thin, brittle, and outsourced. It is no longer an anchor forged in the depths of your own being, but a flimsy collage pasted together from the opinions, expectations, and reactions of others. You begin to feel less like a person and more like a vessel, a conduit for the desires of the world. This inner decay inevitably poisons your perception of the outer world. Living as the persona, you build a cognitive echo chamber where your own curated voice, reflected back at you, is the only one you trust. You become addicted to validation and pathologically averse to criticism, because a challenge to your opinion is no longer just a disagreement. It is a threat to your very existence. Your reality becomes fragile, a bubble that must be defended against anything that might reveal the emptiness within. Your relationships, too, begin to hollow out. True empathy requires the generous, undivided gift of your presence. But with a mind fractured by distraction, you can only offer a semblance of it. You perform the act of listening, waiting for the pause where you can insert your pre-approved response. You send the heart emoji while your mind is already on the next task. Connection becomes a series of transactions, a performance of care that lacks the resonant depth of genuine human communion. On a societal level, we are cultivating a world of brilliant performers who are losing the capacity for original thought. Creativity is not born from efficiency. It is born from the messy, inefficient, and often boring spaces in between our scheduled lives. It emerges from the daydream, the long walk with no destination, the moment of spontaneous association in a quiet mind. By optimizing every second for responsiveness and productivity, we are paving over the fertile wilderness where new ideas grow. We are building a society of problem solvers who are forgetting how to ask the great questions. We become incredibly adept at navigating the map we've been given, but we lose the ability to imagine a new world altogether. We have become ghosts in the machine of our own making. Our consciousness spreads so thin across the network that there is almost nothing left at the core. We are caught in a feedback loop of our own design, a spiral of psychic decay that feels inescapable. Each answered email and satisfied request another turn of the screw tightening the cage. But what if the escape route is not forward, into more optimization and control, but backward, into a power we have been taught to abandon? What if the key to rebuilding our minds and reclaiming our souls lies not in doing more, but in a radical, terrifying, and sacred act of rebellion? This radical act of rebellion is the conscious, deliberate, and unapologetic cultivation of your own unavailability. It is a declaration of psychic independence. To break free, you must first perform a kind of alchemy on your own understanding. You must learn to see unavailability not as an absence, but as a different, more potent kind of presence. A presence to yourself. It is not a void. It is a sanctuary. It is the sealed chamber where the most vital work is done, the work of forging a soul. This is not about becoming a hermit or rejecting the world. It is about building an inner fortress so strong that you can engage with the world on your own terms, from a place of fullness rather than a place of need. Your no to the incessant demands of the outside world must become a thunderous yes to the quiet, waiting world within. The first step is to walk directly into the fear you have been taught to avoid, the anxiety of disappointing others. When you first begin to close your door, to let the phone ring, to answer an email hours later instead of seconds, you will feel a jolt of social terror. This discomfort is the withdrawal symptom from your addiction to external validation. Do not retreat from it. Lean into it. Recognize this feeling for what it is, a sign that the healing is beginning. It is the ache of a spiritual muscle being used for the first time. Every pang of guilt you feel for setting a boundary is a signal that you are reclaiming territory that was stolen from you. You must learn to find a quiet satisfaction in that discomfort, to see it as the price of admission to a life of authenticity. This is the initial, necessary fire you must walk through. Once you have weathered the initial fear, you must begin the practice of creating sacred space. This is your rebellion against the cult of productivity. Look at the great creative and spiritual minds of history. Carl Jung did not formulate his most profound theories in a boardroom. He retreated to a stone tower he built with his own hands, a place with no electricity, where he could be utterly alone with his psyche. The mystics and monastics of every tradition understood this. Their vows of silence and retreat were not a rejection of humanity, but a technology for discovering a deeper reality they could then bring back to humanity. Virginia Woolf's room of one's own was not just a plea for physical space, but for a sovereign mental territory. These were not dropouts, they were pioneers. They understood that genius, wisdom, and truth are not found in the noise of the crowd, but in the protected silence of a mind that is free. You must become the fierce guardian of your own silence. Schedule nothing into your calendar. Practice the lost art of being bored. Take the walk without the podcast. Sit in the chair without the phone. This is not empty time. It is fertile time, where the seeds of your true self can finally begin to grow. This practice allows you to achieve the ultimate goal, to become the conscious master of your own persona. The solution is not to shatter the mask. It is a vital tool for social life. The solution is to learn to wear it, not be worn by it. Your periods of sacred unavailability are where you go to remember the face beneath the mask. You touch base with your core self. You replenish your energy. You listen to your own intuition. Then, you can re-enter the world and put on the persona of the professional, the friend, the partner, but you do so as a conscious choice. You are an actor playing a role, fully aware of the distinction between the character and the self. You are no longer a slave to the world's expectations, because your sense of worth is no longer derived from the world's applause. It is forged and anchored in the quiet, unassailable sanctuary of your own being. This is how you reclaim the territory of your mind, turning your attention from a resource to be plundered into a power to be wielded. But once you have cleared this space and can finally hear yourself think, what is it that you will discover? What lies waiting in the heart of that reclaimed silence? The answer is not just peace or freedom, but the final, most powerful realization of all. A revelation that will restructure your entire reality. What you discover in the heart of that reclaimed silence is the secret that all mystics, artists, and true individuals eventually stumble upon. The ultimate goal was never to find a static, perfectly defined true self hiding beneath the layers of your social conditioning. That self does not exist. The search was never for an object to be found. It was for a connection to be made. The final, most powerful realization is this: the sacred space you have carved out by being unavailable is not an empty room to be furnished with your identity. It is a portal. It is a gateway to the vast, chaotic, and terrifyingly powerful source code of your own being, the deep unconscious. This is the great paradigm shift. You were not looking for yourself. You were looking for the creator within yourself. For your entire life, you have been living in the upper rooms of your own house, convinced that this small, well-lit space was all that existed. You decorated it with the persona, you kept it tidy for visitors, and you mistook the echoes in its hallways for your own voice. The anxiety, the hollowness, the burnout, these were the groans of a foundation you did not know you had. The practice of unavailability is the act of finding the hidden staircase, of descending into the vast, dark, and ancient cellars of your own psyche. Here, in the Jungian depths, resides everything your conscious mind has repressed, forgotten, or deemed unworthy. Here is your shadow, with its raw power, its untamed emotions, and its brutal honesty. But here, too, is the self with a capital S, the divine organizing intelligence of your total being. It is the source of all creativity, all intuition, all dreams, and all genuine spiritual experience. It is the wellspring. You were dying of thirst while living on top of an infinite ocean. This is why the old way of life felt like a performance. You were an actor reading lines written by someone else, by society, by your upbringing, by your fears. By connecting to the unconscious, you are no longer just the actor. You become a co-author of the play. Your life ceases to be a series of reactions to external stimuli and begins to be an expression of this deep inner source. Your actions, your words, and your choices start to flow not from a place of what do they want from me, but from a place of what is seeking to be born through me. This is the difference between a life of frantic activity and a life of profound action. It is the difference between being a tool used by the world and being an artisan who uses the materials of the world to craft a life of meaning. Engaging with this source is not always peaceful. To embrace the self is to also embrace the shadow. You must confront the parts of yourself you have disowned: your anger, your sorrow, your magnificent, terrible power. The journey inward is not one of perpetual bliss, but of radical integration. It is the process of becoming whole, not just good. And the result is an unshakable sense of centeredness. The storms of the world's opinions can still rage, but they can no longer capsize you, for you are anchored in the quiet depths of your own ocean. You can wear the persona in the world, play the game, and fulfill your duties, but with a secret, silent knowledge of who you are when the costume comes off. You can love others more profoundly because you are giving from a place of infinite fullness, not begging from a place of emptiness. The room of mirrors is gone. The frantic performance is over. In its place is a quiet, potent, and generative silence. You have discovered that the power of being unavailable is the power to access reality itself, the creative engine of your own existence. All the past struggles suddenly become clear. They were the desperate, incoherent symptoms of being cut off from your own life force. This journey into the abandoned territories of the soul is the great work of our time. It is a process of excavation and rediscovery, not unlike exploring the forgotten landscapes of our world to uncover the stories they still hold. If you feel the pull to explore these inner and outer wildernesses, to understand the power that lies in what has been left behind, and to reclaim the beauty from the ruins, then your own journey has just begun.